still, or do you still see people as race when you see them first?
To me, they're just people. Would you believe, being a white person, and I have my own family, of course, my mom's upstairs and everything, I also have a black family that, quote, adopted me, so to speak.
Right.
And when I was going to college at Bluefield, there was a girl that was a year ahead of me, but she was having the worst time in math, and I was a math major, and I tutored her, and we became friends. We've been friends since 1979. Her late father and her mother called me their one and only little white child. Anything they would get me, they signed it Mom and Dad. I'd get them something and send it to Mom and Dad.
That's good.
She lost her sister in '03, and I felt like I lost mine. On Facebook, her daughter always refers to me as Aunt Emmy. And
That's good. That's good. So you have a positive experience where people actually accept you, and even though they're a different race. That's wonderful.
Right. But at the same time...
Go ahead, Boston.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Obviously, in the South, excuse me, I'm sorry. Well, I was going to say, don't you think in the South it's more... You've been together, black and white have been together for so long that you all have mingled. And like I'm from Boston, and the racism here is more thicker than it is down there, even though it's down there. But yeah, excuse me.
Boston is a horribly racist city.
Yeah, it is. Well, it is. It's racially divided. I don't know many white people up here and anything. But I was saying down south, you grew up together and you commingled, seeing each other. But I know you have tragedy like Emmett Till, but at the same time, you grew up together.
Well, that's true. But I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Emmy. Go ahead. Well, actually, wait a second. I got a caller. Let me take them real quick. Hold on. 936. You're on the air. 936. You're on the air. Oh, he put his hand down. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Actually, I didn't really know any blacks until I think the first black person in my school, I was in like the 5th grade before the blacks were coming to my school, even though they had already started, whatever you call it, back when Mom was in school. There just wasn't that many around. But
integration?
Right. It could have been, with me, the fact that whenever I had meningitis and I was in the hospital, my 2 roommates were 2 black girls.
Yeah.
And me being 4 years old, I never knew the difference.
Right. And you had a positive experience with black people,
right?
And you were afraid of them.
Well, there's one black person, and I don't get into this very often, but we worked together. We went to the drive-in, and needless to say, he took me out into a field.
Okay.
And you can take it from there what he did.
Okay. But it hasn't made you hate all black people because one black person is bad.
Right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's good. And that means that's the difference between being a racist and not. You can obviously conceptualize in your mind. You have a big enough mind to understand that one person of one race, it's not the race that made him evil or made him do that to you. It was his own experiences in life. It's not
right. His bringing up.
Right. It has nothing to do with his race necessarily. So I think that it's good that people can make those distinctions, but people often don't. And a lot of people, if they had experienced that, would have just said, "Oh, all black people are horrible and evil, blah blah blah," and perpetuated the whole black man is mean thing or evil. But as a kid, for me though, growing up in the South and stuff, I always was acutely aware of racial division, but in a different way. Like I would notice that the Caucasian kids I was a very, very intelligent kid. I mean, I'm not saying that, but I was very intelligent and I absorbed everything I was taught, and yet when my peers or whatever, my teacher would call on them or whatever more than me or whatever because they thought of me, perceived me possibly when they first met me before knowing me too long as being less than knowledgeable because of how they perceived me racially. So, and of course, maybe that's why I spent most of my life trying to prove them the other way, prove them wrong. But I know that a lot of people in the South, even though we did grow up together, black, white, all different races, that doesn't mean the fact that racism doesn't exist here still. I mean, I think the South is absolutely more racist than the North, and that's just my opinion. I don't know, I haven't lived there. I've been there, but I haven't lived there. But I definitely feel that it's far more racist here just because of our history in the South. So, that's how I feel about it anyway.
With a few exceptions.
Well, of course, there are always exceptions. I mean,
right. I'm saying just like with him in Boston, there may be some exceptions, but the North were the ones that didn't want the slaves, and the South did.
Yeah, I know. But there were all... Go ahead, Boston.
I guess I was thinking about more historical as far as the black woman being the mammy and really, cuddling the white children. I mean, that was a fact that she did that, and that was the role, and that history, that's what I was really...
Well, you know what, then, Boston? In a way, that's the way I feel about something totally different. Like, my name's Elizabeth, but I don't like to be called Elizabeth because I'm single, I'm old, I'm fat, and there was always these nannies that was called Miss Elizabeth.
Right. Right.
So...
Well, that's the thing, though. Those people, that's true, Boston. That's a good point, too. I think I know what you're saying, but they're more comfortable in a sense because, like you said, the history of them being around in the households and things like that through the Civil War era and everything else. And then,
right on.
Yeah, and then, of course, in the 60s, they often were the maids and the nannies, et cetera. So, yeah, that's a good point, too. It's a good point.
And then I think politically, one more point.
Sure.
Richard Nixon used the Southern strategy. I don't think we ever came out of that because once he used that, I think it divided the country much more than it would have been if they had just left race out of politics as far as trying to win using race as a wedge issue.
Well, yeah, and I think that's probably a good point too. And unfortunately, that happens now anyway. But I think that may have been different if that hadn't occurred. You're right. But
the Republicans use it all the time.
Yeah,
well,
I know.
Thank you for your time. I thank you. It was really good talking to you. I thank you for being my Facebook friend, and I'm getting into your show. I really like your show, and I really think you have the courage to be who you are, and I really have a lot of respect for you. And thank you, Cougar. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back to wrap up. I'll be right back.
All right.
I was born into this world, little bitty baby girl. Not looking white, looking so black, in a racist world. Now it's a difficult process. The matter is a perception. When I look in the mirror, what do I see? Is it my reflection? See repercussions, talking about the things we do. You need to know repercussions. Things can come right back to you. Give them repercussions.
Sorry, I was trying to get unmuted. It wouldn't unmute me. All right, we're back. So we've got about 20 minutes left in the show. If anybody wants to call in, feel free to call 323-843-6160. Also, there was a time in history during World War II where the Japanese were forced to go into internment camps simply because of racial profiling. Just much like we're dealing with now with the Middle Easterners whom are profiled racially because of 9/11. And I find that to be it's an unfair thing. I don't think you should be able to put an entire race of people into an internment camp or internment camps simply because people from another country who are not, from their country, homeland, whatever you want to call it, because their ancestors come from that place doesn't mean that they're terrorists or going to kill you. So I find that to be unfair. But I have friends who, actually I have been, because I told you, people often think now sometimes that I'm Middle Eastern, even though I'm not. And so I've been, after 9/11 happened, I was stopped once or twice because I wasn't like searched or anything. But I mean, it's hard to explain. But when you have been a minority, you understand the difference between when someone's talking to you a certain way because of one thing or because it's a racial thing or racial profiling. And so it's happened to me because of that. And I think that people who are here who are Middle Eastern have every right to be here. And just because someone is Middle Eastern doesn't make them a terrorist, people. I mean, come on. I mean, just because someone's, genetically related to a group of people doesn't make them that person. Just like Lady Cougar was saying earlier about her unfortunate experience with a man who was African American who took advantage of her in a bad way, didn't lead her to think that every African American male in the world is evil. And she's got, so you've got to expand your mind, people. Let in the idea that people are not their race. People are not their race. I mean, look at all the differences within the black race, the Hispanic race, Asian race, Native American, so many races that there are, and within each one of those races, there are so many types of different people. And, think about yourself. If you're Caucasian or whatever race you are, does your race define you? Do you wake up in the morning and say, oh, I'm a white person, I'm going to be white today, I'm going to do all these white things, I'm going to drive my white car, go to my white house? No, you live your life as a human being, and therefore you should be seen as such. People need to stop putting people into these niches. And I understand people are afraid of people they don't understand, but that's how you get around racism. That's how racism is squelched. That's how racism is put aside, is you get to know people of a different race. Whatever race you fear, if you have a fear of a particular race, you don't consider yourself racist, fine. But if you have a fear of a particular race or you think they're less than you or whatever it may be, get to know them on a human level. Make a black friend, make a Hispanic friend, make a friend who's Asian. Don't judge people based on their race, period. Just make some friends and start to understand who they are by their actions and the content of their character, as Martin Luther Jr. said, King Jr. said. So understand people based on what they do, not what race they are. Because you know what? We don't have any control over what race we are. We are born into whatever race we are. And so it's just like if you're born a man or a woman. You're born beautiful, you're born unattractive, you're born fat, you're born skinny, whatever you don't have a choice about. Those things, race is the same way. And so to discriminate against people based on something that they have no control over, and that which doesn't in of itself define them anyway, is ridiculous in its ignorance. And I really feel people should be aware of the fact that the ignorance that's coming from the place